Hello, this is Andy Mangum from Brookhaven College. I'm here to talk about outlining and to give you an example. This is the basic structure of an outline. You'll notice that the speech has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction contains four parts: an attention getter, the orientation to the topic, the thesis sentence, and the preview. This is the sequence in which they come in the speech, but it is not the sequence in which you write them. The body has a certain number of main points. This is a fairly typical speech, so it's going to have three main points. Then they have the conclusion, which has a review and a sense of closure. Now let me talk about the sequence with which you write this. A speech should begin with a thesis sentence. A thesis sentence is a one-sentence summary of the content of your speech. Remember that I say that a thesis sentence should be independently informative, that it doesn't say, I'm going to talk about something. It says, this is what I'm here to say. Then it should be audience-oriented. It should have your audience included somewhere in the thesis sentence, either in the second-person pronoun, you, or a more general statement about who they are, or specific statement, rather, about who they are. And finally, it should be orally deliverable. And because I don't want to get too technical in this speech, I'm going to use a very simple example of a thesis sentence that says, you can easily make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, you would think that you would start with the attention getter, but don't go there yet, because you really don't know what this speech is about, and so you don't really know how to introduce it. Once you have written your thesis sentence, then you're ready to talk about your main points. What is it that you want to convey? For this speech, I'm going to use a fairly conventional three-point concept of ingredients, process, and finished results. So my first main point is going to be, you will need to locate your ingredients. My second main point will be, you will need to follow the process. And my third main point will be, you will enjoy the results. Now something in statement here, these are Roman numerals. I use Roman numerals. I use a standard Harvard-style outlining so that I can remind you that the main points of your speech are indicated by Roman numerals, and can remind you to look at the Roman numerals and say, is the statement beside the Roman numeral a complete sentence? And when you get to full sentence outlines, that becomes incredibly important. But notice now that you have three main points, you are prepared to write your preview. The preview is a statement that tells your audience what your main points are going to be and in the order that you're going to give them. It tells them what they're going to be using the key words out of your main points. So notice I have indicated the key words: ingredients, process, and results. Those key words are going to show up three times at least in the course of my speech. This preview is going to say something along the lines of, get off the highlight, today I will show you the ingredients, process, and results to make your easy, delicious peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Now that I have my thesis, my preview, I can go back and sort of work in some other things. Let's talk about the body of the speech. Each main point, that is, each thing that's indicated by a Roman numeral, when you deliver it, is going to follow four S's. You will signpost. Signpost is a word that indicates where you are in the transition of your speech. First, second, and third are signposts. Each Roman numeral needs to be introduced with a signpost, the word first, second, or third. Then you have the statement, that's the sentence that comes right there beside that Roman numeral. The third S is support, and for this I'm going to fill in my substructure. Peanut butter, jelly, and bread are the ingredients I need for my main point. And then the fourth S is going to be a summary. And this is one of the things that my students frequently fail to do. They fail to summarize their main point, and so they end up transitioning before we have sort of closed the page on that main point. So notice I have written out my summary here, and that's a good thing for you to do in your outlines as well. Don't make them long. Remember, you're doing this orally, not in writing, so it needs to be something that comes off your tongue. You'll find it easiest to make your delicious peanut butter and jelly sandwich if you locate your ingredients first. That's a good summary statement of this main point. So again, my body main points have a signpost. Every time I see a Roman numeral, I signpost. The statement, that's the sentence that is the claim of the main point, the support, and then the summary statement. You would do this for the other main points. I'm not going to do that. But I am now ready that I have developed the full speech. I'm now ready to go back and actually introduce it. You want to get an attention getter, and your book will talk about how to do that in a variety of ways. And so you should consult your book. But some examples of attention getters are profound quotations, startling statistics, a common situation. If you're woken up in the morning and thought, I really need to eat breakfast, but I don't have time to make anything, right? That's a common situation. Tell a story briefly. I can remember the first time I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or maybe show a picture and discuss that. For my speech, I'm actually going to do the picture option, and so I'm going to say, friends, do you know what that is? That's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The orientation to the topic is the second thing you're going to do in your introduction. Things that you need to keep in mind here. You want to define important terminology that might be used in the thesis. You'll save other terminology usually for later on in the speech. You'll define terms when you use them. Explain the significance. Why should your audience care about this particular topic? So you're going to write the orientation to the topic and then your thesis sentence. In reality, if I were writing this outline, and you'll see this in some examples that I've given online, is that I would write all of this out as a single paragraph. But to break it apart and let you see the basic parts, you'll see that. But again, the basic parts of my introduction are the attention getter, the orientation to the topic, the thesis sentence, and the preview. Now, once I've done that, I can move on to the conclusion. The conclusion has two parts. It has a review and it has a sense of closure. The review is that third place where you want to make sure you use the key terms from your outline in the review. It's the exact mirror of the preview, or it resembles the preview. It says, now that I have shown you the ingredients, that's my first main points key phrase you'll need, and I've actually reminded my audience here of peanut butter, jelly, and bread, the process you'll follow. In my substructure there, I would talk about spreading it on the bread and not cross-contaminating. You hate to get that peanut butter mixed in with the jelly. And the results, best enjoyed with a glass of milk. Now you can make an easy and delicious peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's a good review, but that's not the end of the speech. A lot of times my students get to that point, they feel like they're hitting the finish line, and so they sit down as soon as they have reviewed. But there really does need to be a sense of closure, a sense that you have drawn the speech to an end. The other ways to do that, there's returning to the story that you introduced in the introduction, referring back to or using a closing quotation. There's lots of different ways to do that. But for this one, I've written a sense of closure that says, referring back to that picture, the next time someone asks you to identify a picture like this, that's my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you'll not only define it, you can say, I know how to make it. And that gives that audience the sense that the speech has come to an end. So now that you have seen the way to outline your speech, hopefully along the way you'll also understand how to translate these structures into the orality. Remember that the introduction has an attention getter, orientation to the topic, thesis, sentence, and preview, that each main point will be signposted, stated, supported, and summarized. The conclusion will have the review and the sense of closure. Good luck, and as always, if you have any questions, give me a call.